So this is lesson 8.1 in intermediate algebra, and we're going to talk about the slope of a line. Now, we talked about this earlier in the book, but it is such an important concept. They keep bringing it up again and reviewing, and then they will bring up some other things that maybe you haven't gone over before. First thing we're going to talk about is an intercept. We have two different kinds of intercepts, and we'll look at both of those intercepts here in this drawing. We have what is called a y-intercept, and that is where the line crosses the y-axis, that point right there. And a y-intercept always means you go left or right 0. So you start here and you go left or right 0 and up however much or down however much. In this case it's 0, 2 is the point. Left or right 0, up 2. So the y-intercept is 2, and it's at the point 0, 2. So the y-intercept just means where does this line cross y? At 2. Same thing is true with the x-intercept. We go left or right a certain amount, this time it's 3, and we go up or down 0. The x-intercept is 3. Alright, so when we're given an equation, we are going to be given an equation with both an x and a y variable. So, such as the one that we have right here. 2x plus 3y equals, come on, right, equals 6. Alright, so when that's given to you that way, and you're trying to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept, what you're going to do is, in order to find the x-intercept, you're going to get rid of the y, so that all you have is an x value. And when you're looking for the y-intercept, you're getting rid of the x value, so that all you have is a y. Okay, so this one in particular, the way you find the x-intercept is you plug 0 in for the y. Always. To find the x, you plug 0 in for the y. That gives you 0. 2x equals 6, x equals 3. And that's what we have right there. To find the y-intercept, we take the same equation and we plug, whoops, that's a y, isn't it? And we plug 0 in for the x. And that goes away. And we have y equals 2. So when you do that, it's a real easy way to find 2 points on the line when you're trying to graph. You just find the x-intercept and the y-intercept by using 0, and you find this point here and this point here, and then you draw your line, and you have your line of the equation. So that's what an x and a y-intercept are. So again, the key is, when you're looking for the x-intercept, plug 0 in for the y. When you want the y-intercept, you plug 0 in for the x. And that will give you your x and your y. So the next section of this particular lesson is the slope of a line. We have we have 4 different types of slope. We have a slope, and you always go from left to right. When you're looking at a slope, you look at it from left to right and see what it's doing. So this one here, going from left to right, is going downhill. Well, when you go down, you're going in a negative direction, so this has a negative slope. When you are going up from left to right, you're at a positive slope. When you're not moving at all, you have a slope of 0. Which brings us to the other kind of a slope, where if we have a slope that goes like that, straight up and down, that has a slope that does not exist. The slope is non-existent. It has no slope. And we'll get into why that's the case in a little bit. But let's go ahead and look at example number 2. And let's get rid of this drawing there. And we have y equals 2x minus 3. Alright, so like you remember from the past, when you have a slope in this format where m and b are both numbers, and x and y are x and y, you have what is called slope-intercept form of an equation. So if you can get the equation in this format right here, it makes graphing a lot easier. In fact, this one says, the example 2 just says find the slope of the line. Well, the letter M, when it's written in this format, which is the way this is written, when it's written in that format, M is always the slope. So if you have it written in that format, the number in front of the x is the slope, and you're done. So is y equals 2x minus 3 written in slope-intercept form? Yes, it is. So the slope is the number in front of the x, which in this case is 2. Okay. But not all equations are written in this format, and sometimes you're just given a picture of a graph and you're asked to find out what the slope is. So let's look at one of those pictures here. Okay, so let's look at the blue line. And when you want to find the slope of a line where you're given a graph, this is a good way to do it. Let me get red here. Alright, so we have just the blue line. We're not going to look at the red one at all. And we're going to pick 2 points. And when we pick 2 points, we want to pick points where we know what they are. Like this one right there is point 0, 1. And then let's see, we'll pick this point right here, which is 2, negative 2. Okay, so we went over 2 and down 2 to get that point. So we're just going to look at this point and that point. And we can figure the slope out just given those 2 points. Now let me make my pen a little bit bigger here. Alright, the way we do that is slope equals one of the y points minus the other y point over one of the x points minus the other x point. Alright, the only reason I have these 2 numbers here, this 2 here and a 1 here and a 2 here and a 1 here, is so I know which ones I'm looking at. Okay, so the y1 and x1, let's just say, are these points here. So this is x1, y1, comma. And that means that this one is x2, y2. It's just the name of the point. Okay, so I'm just calling these 2 points x1 and y1 because they're both, this one's an x and this one's an x. So I know which one is which. I'm going to call one 1 and one 2. Okay, if you've ever read Dr. Seuss about the star-bellied sneetches, they're both sneetches, only one has a star on it and one doesn't. One's a plain-bellied sneetch and one's a star-bellied sneetch. They're both sneetches, but to tell the difference, one has a star on it and one doesn't. Same thing here. They're both x's, so we know the difference. We call one subscript 1 and the other one subscript 2. Okay, so that's all that means. So here's the formula. So in order to find the slope, we take the y2, which is 1, right here, and we subtract y1, and y1 is negative 2. And we put it over the x2, which in this case is this one right here, 0, minus, and what are we subtracting it from? x1, which is this number here, the 2. Okay, so we took y2, which is that number there, minus y1, which is this number there, over x2, which is this number here, minus x1, which is that number there. Alright, so then we solve it. M equals 1 minus a negative 2 is the same as 1 plus 2. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. So that is the slope of the blue line. And notice, going from left to right, it's going downhill, so we know it's going to be a negative slope. We talked about that earlier. And it's a slope of the difference between those two numbers, and there we go. Slope is -3/2. Now we could have picked, and I know this is a little bit longer of a video just because I'm going over a lot of details here, but we could have picked instead of, let's get rid of some of this stuff here. We could have picked instead of, let's move that up, this point here and this point here, let's pick this point here and this point here. Just to show you it doesn't really matter. Okay, so this point here is 2, -2, and this point down here is 4, -5, it looks like. And we're going to use this formula again. Alright, let's call this set of numbers here x1 and y1, and this x2, y2. It doesn't matter what you call them. You can call them anything you want. Alright, so using this formula up here, let's take the y2, which is -5, minus y1, which is -2, and we're going to put that over x2, which is 4, minus x1, which is 2. Let's see what we get. -5 plus 2 over 2, which equals -3 over 2. So again, we get the same answer. So it doesn't matter which points you pick, you're going to get the same slope for your answer. Alright, sometimes they won't even give you the handy-dandy graph in order to solve this. Sometimes they'll just say, find the slope of a line that goes through -2, -3, and -5 and 1. And that's all they give you. Well, using this formula, let's call this x1, y1, and this x2, y2. And we can say then that slope equals, what's my y2? It's 1 from right here, minus my y1, which is a -3. Don't forget to put the parentheses because it's not 1 minus 3, it's 1 minus -3. And then my x2 is -5, and my x1 is -2. Okay, so 1 minus -3 is 1 plus 3, and -5 plus 2 is -3. So that gives me either 4 over -3, or I can just say -4 over 3. I can put that negative wherever I want, and I'm done as far as finding that slope. Okay, we'll continue with the next video. That's it for 8.1a.